Guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about the Azygos system of veins. See you guys in class. So let's talk about the Azygos system of veins. The Azygos system of veins comprises of three veins, which are the azygos vein, the hemiazygos vein, and the accessory hemiazygos vein. So we are going to be talking about the azygos vein first. The azygos vein is an unpaired vein that is seen on the right side of the body. It is referred to as a single vein, or a vein that does not have companion. This is simply because it is a deep vein, but it's not accompanied by any artery. Usually, deep veins have accompanying artery, but it's not the same for the azygos vein. So the azygos vein is paravertebral in position, which simply means that it runs along the side of the vertebral column. The azygos vein drains the posterior thoracic wall and the upper part of the posterior abdominal wall, and it is located at the upper part of the posterior abdominal wall and the posterior mediastinum. Okay, now if you've watched my video on the mediastinum, you know that the posterior mediastinum has its content as the azygos vein, the hemiazygos vein, and the accessory hemiazygos vein. So let's talk about the formation of the azygos vein. So the azygos vein is being formed by the union of the lumbar azygos vein, the right ascending lumbar vein, and the right subcostal vein. So all those give rise to the azygos vein. So first of all, let's talk about the lumbar azygos vein. Lumbar azygos vein may not always be present, which simply means that it can vary among individuals. In some cases, this lumbar azygos vein might be absent or only partially developed, with other veins in the lumbar region now compensating for its function. So when it is absent, venous drainage from the lumbar region may be primarily handled by the right ascending lumbar vein. So now this big man, the lumbar azygos vein, is now going to anastomose with the right ascending lumbar vein. Okay, so when it anastomoses the right ascending lumbar vein, this right ascending lumbar vein will now communicate with common iliac vein. Now remember that this is the inferior vena cava, which is formed by the union of two common iliac veins, which are the right common iliac vein and the left common iliac vein. So the right ascending lumbar vein is going to communicate with the right common iliac vein and forms a vertical anastomosis with the lumbar veins, which will now drain the posterior abdominal wall. Now these lumbar veins have about 4 parts. So the lower 2 is going to drain into the inferior vena cava, while the upper 2 will continue as tributaries of the ascending lumbar vein. So this ascending lumbar vein will now ascend upwards along the posterior abdominal wall, deep to the psoas major muscle, and is joined below the diaphragm by the right subcostal vein. So let me explain it with a clear diagram. So this is the inferior vena cava that we can see at the lower part of the azygos vein. Okay, now this inferior vena cava is being formed by the union of the two common iliac veins, which are the right common iliac vein and the left common iliac vein. So these are the lumbar veins. So this lumbar vein is going to form an anastomosis with the right ascending lumbar vein. So this right ascending lumbar vein will communicate, as you can see the communication, with the right common iliac vein. And as it communicates, it forms a vertical anastomosis with the lumbar vein, which is this. Now this lumbar vein have various parts, like various different lumbar veins. So the lower 2 will be draining into the inferior vena cava, while the upper 2 are usually tributaries of the ascending lumbar vein. So this ascending lumbar vein will ascend up along the posterior abdominal wall, deep to the psoas major muscle, below the level of diaphragm, to join the right subcostal vein. So you can just say that the lumbar veins anastomose with the right ascending lumbar vein, which joins the right subcostal vein below the diaphragm. Okay, so now let's talk about the cause of the azygos vein. Remember that the azygos vein forms a channel that connects the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava, as you can see. So the azygos vein leaves the abdomen by passing through an aortic opening that is seen at the level of the T12 of the diaphragm. So watch my video on the diaphragm so you can understand that at the level of T12, the aortic opening is present at the diaphragm. So the azygos vein leaves the abdomen, passing through the aortic opening of the diaphragm, which is present at the level of T12. Once it gets to the aortic opening, it ascends up to the level of T4, that's the fourth thoracic vertebrae. Now, when it gets to this point, this is the fourth thoracic vertebrae, it arches forward or arches above or arches over the root of the right lungs, because we are still talking about the right side of the body, and this vein is present on the right side of the body. So it arches over the roots of the right lungs. Now it's going to make an impression just above the hilum of the lungs. Okay, please watch my video on the lungs so you can see the roots of the lungs that has the hilum. Okay, and it opens posteriorly into the superior vena cava just before the superior vena cava pierces the pericardium. Remember that we said that the azygos vein is being located at the posterior abdominal wall and the posterior mediastinum. So in the posterior mediastinum, it is bounded anteriorly by the pericardium. So that is why we said that it opens posteriorly into the superior vena cava just before this superior vena cava pierces the pericardium. Okay, and then the posterior mediastinum is bounded posteriorly by the lower 8 thoracic vertebrae and the intervening discs. So that is for the course of the azygos vein. So you can simply put that it enters into the thorax after it has left the abdomen by passing through an aortic opening at the level of T12 of the diaphragm, ascends up to the fourth thoracic vertebrae, arches over the root of the right lungs, and joins the posterior aspect of the superior vena cava. So that's where it ends. It ends by joining the posterior aspect of the superior vena cava. Now let's talk about the relations of the azygos vein. So this explains the relation of the azygos vein. So here we are having like the right side of the azygos vein and the left side of the azygos vein. Now here's the left side of the body, which has the accessory hemiazygos vein and the hemiazygos vein. So on the right side of the azygos vein, let's talk about the anterior relations first. So anteriorly, we're having the esophagus here. Posteriorly, we're having the lower 8 thoracic vertebrae and the right posterior intercostal arteries. Then on the right side, we're having the right lungs and the pleura that's present on the right side and the greater splanchnic nerve. Then on the left side, we are having the thoracic duct. So this is the thoracic duct and the descending aorta in the lower part, and the esophagus, the trachea, and the vagus in the upper part. Okay. Now, if you observe, all the relations of the azygos vein are contents of the posterior azygos vein, which are the esophagus, the lower 8 thoracic vertebrae, the right posterior intercostal arteries, the right lungs, the pleura, the greater splanchnic nerve, the thoracic ducts are seen at the lower parts, and the trachea, the esophagus, the vagus in the upper part, and then the descendant aorta as well. So these are all the contents of the posterior mediastinum. So you can see that the azygos vein is also located in the posterior mediastinum as well as the posterior abdominal wall. So most of these relations are going to be the contents of the posterior mediastinum. I hope that makes sense. So let's talk about the tributaries of the azygos vein. Now the azygos vein, when we talk about the formative tributaries like those three big men here, so we're not going to be talking about that anymore. So now in the posterior mediastinum, this azygos vein is going to receive 5th to 11th posterior intercostal veins, all draining into the azygos vein. So like this are the posterior intercostal veins, and they will all drain into the azygos vein. Like that is very wonderful. So the next one is the right superior intercostal veins, which is formed by the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th posterior intercostal vein. Please on the right posterior intercostal vein. So the right superior intercostal vein is also going to drain into the azygos vein, which is also very beautiful. Now the first posterior intercostal vein directly opens into the right brachiocephalic vein, so it does not drain into the azygos vein. Okay, so this is the first posterior intercostal vein, so it does not have any relation to the azygos vein because it directly opens into the right brachiocephalic vein. Now, all the posterior intercostal veins on the right side drains into the azygos vein, as I've said. So, in addition, it also receives blood from the left side of the thoracic cavity and the upper part of the posterior abdominal wall through 2 veins, which are the hemiazygos vein and the accessory hemiazygos vein. So, this hemiazygos vein is present on the left side, but it turns towards the right to drain into the azygos vein, while the accessory hemiazygos vein is also present on the left side, but it turns towards the right to drain into the azygos vein as well. So the next tributary we are having is the right bronchial vein. So the right bronchial vein is seen at the terminal end of the azygos vein, which also drains into the azygos vein. So we have the esophageal veins, the mediastinal veins, and the pericardial veins. So let me name it one at a time. So the first one is the right superior intercostal veins. The second is the 5th to 11th posterior intercostal veins. The hemiazygos vein, the third one. The accessory hemiazygos vein, the fourth one. The right bronchial vein, the 5th one. The esophageal veins, the 6th. The mediastinal veins, the pericardial veins. Okay, so the esophageal veins, with the exception of those at the lower end. So these are the tributaries of the azygos veins. So let's talk about the hemiazygos vein. So this hemiazygos vein, just like the big man azygos vein, is seen on the left side of the body and is formed by those 3 big men here as well, which are the left ascending lumbar vein, the left subcostal vein, and the left lumbar azygos vein. Okay, now you already know that the lumbar azygos vein on the left side is going to anastomose with the left ascending lumbar vein all together rejoin to the left subcostal vein to form the hemiazygos vein, just as explained in the azygos vein. Okay, so that's fine. Now in some individuals, it might arise from the posterior surface of the left renal vein, but this is actually a variation, so it's not in all individuals. Okay, now let's talk about the cause of the hemiazygos vein. It pierces the left crus of the diaphragm. Yes, it's going to be piercing the left crus of the diaphragm because it's still on the left side of the body. Please watch my video on diaphragm, mediastinum, and lungs for you to have a clearer and better understanding of the Azygos system of veins. So once it pierces the left crus of the diaphragm, it ascends upwards, and it's now going to turn towards the right at the level of T8. Beautiful. And now joins the azygos vein. Like, very wonderful. Now, before it joins the azygos vein, it's going to be passing behind the aorta, the esophagus, and thoracic duct before it will join the azygos vein. So let's say it pierces the left crus of the diaphragm, ascends up, and turns towards the right at the level of T8, passing behind the esophagus, the aorta, and the thoracic duct to join the azygos vein. Now, the tributaries of the hemiazygos vein include 9th to 11th left posterior intercostal veins. 9th, that's the lower posterior intercostal veins, while this one is the upper posterior intercostal veins on the left side. Okay, so 9th to 11th posterior intercostal veins, the small esophageal veins, left subcostal veins, all those are going to be draining into the azygos vein. Okay, because they're going to turn towards the right at the level of T8, passing behind the esophagus, the aorta, and the thoracic duct to join the azygos vein. Okay, so tributaries are 9 to 11 lower, 9 to 11 posterior intercostal vein, that's the lower posterior intercostal vein on the left side, the small esophageal veins, the left subcostal veins, left ascending lumbar vein, and the mediastinal veins. So let's talk about the accessory hemiazygos vein. The accessory hemiazygos vein is referred to as the superior hemiazygos vein. This is because it's a mirror image of the upper part of the azygos vein. So I forgot to say that the hemiazygos vein is also referred to as the inferior hemiazygos vein because it is the mirror image of the lower part of the azygos vein. Now, the accessory hemiazygos vein begins at the medial end of the 4th or 5th intercostal space. Now it descends down. Remember that the hemiazygos vein ascends up, while the accessory hemiazygos vein descends down. On the left side, obviously, of the vertebral column, because it's seen on the left side of the body. Now, at the level of T8, it turns to the right. So both of them are turning to the right at the level of T8. They are turning to the right to meet the azygos vein. Okay? So it turns to the right and also passes behind the aorta, the esophagus, and thoracic duct to join the azygos vein. Now, the tributaries of the accessory hemiazygos vein are 5 to the 8th left posterior intercostal vein. That's the upper posterior intercostal vein on the left side, while the hemiazygos vein is the lower posterior intercostal veins on the left side as well. Then we have the left bronchial vein. So the left bronchial vein is also a tributary of the accessory hemiazygos vein, But for the azygos vein, we have the right bronchial vein that's seen at the terminal end of the azygos vein, which drains into the azygos vein. So this is seen at the terminal end of the accessory hemiazygos vein, which enters into the accessory hemiazygos vein, and it will join the azygos vein. So it's going to be drained into the azygos vein. So the accessory hemiazygos vein, the hemiazygos vein, all drain into the azygos vein, okay? Because the accessory hemiazygos vein and the hemiazygos vein is a tributary of the azygos vein. Do you understand? Talking about the clinical correlates of the Azygos system of veins, we're going to be more focused on the azygos vein, which is the bigger man. So the azygos vein, in case of any obstruction of the superior vena cava, this azygos vein will now aid, or it serves as a main collateral channel to shunt blood from the upper half of the body to the inferior vena cava, okay? Remember that the azygos vein forms a connecting channel, connecting the superior vena cava to the inferior vena cava. So that's all for this class. So guys, you've come to the end of this class. If you stayed to the end of this class, thank you for watching and thank you for staying to the end of this class. My name is Joy Onya. I'm a basic medical lecturer and I teach anatomy. I own an educational channel on YouTube where I post my videos on anatomy. I also have a Facebook page where I post the notes from my videos there. If this is your first time of coming across my channel, you are highly welcome to this beautiful, wonderful and amazing family. Please do not make it your last by clicking on the subscribe button so you can be part of this wonderful family, and I bet you are not going to regret it here. And to my amazing, returning and wonderful subscribers, you guys are the real MVPs. Thank you for the continuous love and support you have shown me in this platform. Just know that I see you guys and I love you guys, and I do not take that for granted, and I highly appreciate it, guys. Thank you all. See you guys in my next video. Bye.